Hey, Invisible Walls is about to start, but if you wanted to download the MP3 or the video, if you're on the Invisible Walls page, look to your left or your right. I'm not sure how this was going to look. There's a little blog link, and you can click on that and get through it. Also on the front page, we're going to be linking directly to the video and the MP3, so you can download it there as well.
Welcome to Invisible Walls 215. I'm not Shane. He's on vacation this week, the lucky so-and-so. But I am here, Marcus Beard, to introduce a kick-ass team where we talk about lots of lovely gaming stuff. And we're going to crack on because time, as always, is tighter than a gnat's chuff. Next to me is Ryan Stevens.
I don't know what those words mean, but that's cool.
Well, you know what a gnat is, yes? A gnat.
Can you tell me after class?
I will. Okay. Next to him, Justin Spear.
Hey. Yeah. What
Life
are we
and
doing
soul,
here?
Life and soul of the party.
What did I sign up for?
And joining us today, the voice of GameTrailers. You're always introduced as that. I mean, can I say something else?
I'm the creative director. It's what it says on my business card. So.
Okay, the creative director of GameTrailers. That's what it says on his business card.
So important.
Brandon Jones is here for a little while as well.
Howdy.
All right, so we're going to crack straight on today. First thing we're going to talk about is Anime Expo. That happened last week. And Brandon, this is why we dragged you in today, because you were on an panel, weren't you?
Yep, it was the second time we've done it. We went to, we were on the second floor and must have been, I don't think we did a head count, but it was probably over 100 people, definitely. And premiered a brand new episode of Pop Fiction that they really liked and answered questions and went really well.
The one that's on the site right now, right?
Yes, the
Mega
Dial
64
M from
team
Missing
up.
No, the wildly loved Mega 64 inclusion in Pop Fiction.
So for those who don't really go to Anime Expo, and I think I've been once in the last God knows how long.
What did you cosplay as?
I didn't. I don't do cosplay. You know that.
That's not the
Did you
answer
know
I was
that?
looking for.
Well, these aren't the droids you're looking for either. So, give us an overview. I mean, and how the games fit into Anime Expo. Because I mean, I think anime. I actually generally don't think of games that much because even though there is a huge JRPG contingent, etc., it's normally for me it's the manga movies, the comic books. So how does it fit in? How much of a response do you get to?
I think Zelda's a great bridge. Zelda seems to play no matter. We could just play Zelda videos. We could just go and have a Zelda panel and just play Zelda videos, and people would freak out. Well, we did the segment on Pokemon, and so that translated really well to the audience. Like I think Don, when he edited it, put a sound effect. Just put the Pokemon theme into like the intro to Pop Fiction, and like they screamed like it was the Beatles. Like they loved it. So I think there is an interesting bridge between. I think gaming should definitely have a presence at the expo, and so it's kind of fun for us, not only just developers, but for the websites to go there
it's
too.
there, but we've never really covered it. We covered it a little this year because we had the panel after last year, but there wasn't too much that came back from the show coverage-wise. The panel was really the big push.
And it's more.
And it's a good dry run because we're probably going to do a panel at PAX hopefully. So.
It's obviously, I mean, it's a 100% consumer show as opposed to coming off E3 when we've had all the big announcements, and E3 is 100%
Bullshit.
industry and. Wow, Justin's on form today. I totally forgotten the point I was going to make.
Sorry
But, I mean,
about
what's it like? What's it like interacting with people? Because I mean, again, we go to PAX and it's great to hang out and hang out and play games. But I mean, do you get recognized? Do you get any?
Yeah, got some. Well, I'm not getting recognized walking down the hallways. It was kind of fun to.
They
Like,
recognize
have to
you on the
say
panel,
something.
though,
it's
when
kind
you
of fun
got
to stand out in front of the panel with my phone, just like playing games, and somebody comes by like, "Are you in line for the panel?" I'm like, "No,
I am the man.
I'll walk around." Get out of
So
the way, but
what was the reaction? What sort of questions do you have?
people actually
to
had really good recommendations this time. Last year, I think there were a lot of people that just kind of drifted into the panel and might not have heard about the show. But this year, people were definitely, I saw some faces return, and people asked really good questions, had really good suggestions for upcoming episodes that we could do. One guy had a great suggestion, which I'm surprised I never really thought about it before, but like I can't remember the actual names of the games. Those 4 infamous Atari games that had like the shield
Quest,
and the sword.
Sword
and
Quest
yeah,
and
like those
everything.
relics.
Yeah.
Should put my like Indiana Jones
Water
hat on and go
Quest,
out and see if
Fire Quest.
see if we can find those, track those down. But
Borrowing from the nerd, I think.
Yeah, I think he does have them. I think he did a pretty good episode.
he didn't. Yeah, he didn't really get into like where they were though, because there were some prizes that they never gave out. Even there was like, I think the 4th game they didn't even release the game.
Yeah, I
so.
think the 4th one's the Holy Grail, right? But no, that was really cool, the whole comic books and stuff. Actually, well, I guess we'll be talking about The Secret World later, but that kind of has, it's funny that this Atari game had kind of like ARG elements
Right. It's
back
like
in the day with its bleeps and bloops.
It's like the E.T. landfill. Like, it's somewhere. It's out there. It's in the world. It's in somebody, that sword's, the Holy Grail's probably in some guy's, attic somewhere.
Did anyone ask Don any questions?
Don, yeah.
Oh, that's good, because James got no questions.
Don's our editor this year, and James Andre is one of the best editors we've ever had. Unfortunately,
James,
went
why
on
is it quiet?
went on to greener pastures, so Don took over Pot Fiction from him, and he answered one or two. But I mean, it's that, and the thing that's really great about anime is these are, I would say, core gamers. I mean, a lot of them are, but like they are so dedicated to one particular genre. So they'll ask questions, and I'm like, wow, I don't even know. I don't like. Some questions I don't understand, that I wouldn't even know where to start to begin to understand it. Very, very specific things about, like there was one thing about missing no duplicates items or something, and they were borderline offended that we didn't mention that in the video. They're just like, that's the clear thing that you would get from the glitch. Like, I don't know why you didn't mention that. So that's, you're really talking to people that know, more about the subject matter than even you do. Even, Mike does, somebody who's sitting down and playing these games. They were surprising him with some comments. So.
Hard to believe.
Hard to believe, but it went really well.
So is this something that you're going to push for every year now? I mean, can we expect this next year? And
Mike's a panel fiend, apparently. Like, Mike does panels all the time. He's
Panel
done a
monster.
bunch of Zelda panels before, not to mention Zelda again. But so this was a connection that he had at the conference. So I imagine as long as Mike's around, yeah, this is something we'll go back and do.
Yeah, it's nice. It's local for us, so that's nice and easy.
If they have a convention at the LA Convention Center, we're there. I mean, we're just going to drive down the 10 and make it happen.
was it FurbyCon next?
Yeah, sure.
Mike,
PornCon.
Yeah, I was about to mention the
Yeah,
Mike
Celebrating
Damiani
the
would,
interactive
would
element.
obviously be here today, but he's actually off filming. He's off to, was it Evo?
Evo, yeah. So
Which we'll
plug.
talk- Yeah, we'll plug that a little bit later, but Mike would be here, but Brandon is obviously ably filling Mike's void, as it were. So, all right, so what was the most random thing you saw? I know you had very little time where it's like dash in, do the panel, dash out. You've got to have seen something that kind of like caught your eye and just like, wow, really, was a piece of cosplay, or somebody asked you a totally random question, or... and I totally blindsided him with this, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good one. I saw a really good Deadpool that was in Lederhosen. That was in a whole Oktoberfest outfit with the fake boobs and everything, but Deadpool. I'm just like, who knows? Maybe that was, I don't know if that was from a comic or that was just him thinking that up. But that's my favorite. Seeing things. The two things that are the best about those cons is seeing just random accidents. Seeing like. Somebody that's got Scooby-Doo is a horrible example to bring up, but if you saw like a Shaggy and a Scooby and then like a Fred, and they just like find each other, like Catcher in the Rye, just like in the middle of the hallway. And it's fun to see moments like that, and it's also fun to see like this Deadpool guy, just like, where did you think this? I mean, it's one thing, I'm almost more impressed by that than somebody who just like, oh, I built a Big Daddy outfit. It's like, okay, but that, I mean, it's kind of fun to put a little more creativity into it and show, I don't know, show your own take on your favorite stuff.
Cool. All right. Well,
Fun
thank
people
you.
at that show.
Thank you for dropping in.
No problem.
Hard to find a good steak around here. Not like back home.
Next up, we're going to talk about the Resident Evil 6 demo that was available or made available this week, but only if you bought Dragon's Dogma. Now,
And on the 360.
And only on the 360.
PS3 gets it next month, I think.
But then do they have to buy Dragon's Dogma?
Yeah. Do you know if it's getting released to everyone at one point? I can't remember.
I can't recall the details exactly,
Yeah,
but
but
people
it
have
was,
definitely
the
gotten a
Dragon's
chance to play it
Dogma
by
like
now.
initiative.
I'm sure it will be released to everybody. But Patrick Morales is joining us. He's played it, and so have Justin. Now, we saw it at E3, and we had the discussion in one of our E3 shows where they showed off the 3 different play styles of the game. Now, I haven't downloaded the demo. I've really got no inclination to until the final game comes out. So what's in the demo, and is it worth having bought Dragon's Dogma to get it this early?
I think Dragon's Dogma is cool and you should buy it anyway.
Yeah.
And then, even if you don't download the demo.
Are you hijacking the thread?
Yes.
So Patrick, same question
Yes.
to you.
In
Thank you.
thread.
Well, it's interesting for me because I got my first taste of Resident Evil 6 way back when at Captivate, but I only had Eyes On at that time. Justin had never
Eyes On.
seen or played it up until we got the demo a few weeks ago. So
Except
I'm
for
more curious to
videos.
hear what you think of it.
Me?
Yeah.
What do you think about that cover
it's-
system?
Oh, jeez.
The cover system kind of sucks.
Kinda.
Yeah, the cover system's kind of like, I'm like this, you're releasing this to the public to play.
Well, how
and
is the demo in relation to what we saw at E3? Is
It's
it one
the
of the
same
same?
demo.
It is
It's-
all
it's-
three segments.
There's
Or
a
is
lot.
it-
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there in the demo. They have, you can play with all 6 characters are there. You can play co-op in the demo. So it is nice of them to give you a little chunk. But it really is kind of, it's a kind of feels like a logical evolution from 5, which I wasn't a huge fan of. I mean, obviously
You're always
they
with a partner,
They
right?
they rebooted the Resident Evil in 4. They had a lot of new ideas, and I feel like now Mikami's all gone, and they're like, well, we gotta make some more games out of this. They're still using the same base. I was hoping it would be maybe a little different. I found it's really actiony now, and the melee, you can melee anytime, and you can kind of go through and just stomp and roundhouse kick people in the face almost endlessly. I mean, Mike said there's a stamina system, but it really changes the feel of the gameplay. You can move a lot faster, you can dive, although I didn't find a lot of use for the dives, but you can just pretty much run up and beat the shit out of zombies.
So the transformation to action game is now complete.
I'd say so.
I mean,
yeah.
and maybe RE5 already. It's already
I
complete
mean,
there,
part of
but-
me is hoping that maybe that's because the demo is set at a maybe normal or easy difficulty setting, but there was no need whatsoever for ammo conservation or anything like that. You could pretty much go through the entire thing, meleeing everything without much problems.
Yeah. And I mean, there are enemies with guns too, but
That's weird, yeah.
They're no match
I
for your
noticed that.
fists.
Well, especially that's on the rooftop level where you're literally
With Chris, yeah.
bouncing around, and you've got these guys. You'll shoot they'll shoot at you. You'll shoot them back, and then they'll turn into monsters, and they'll come and stomp you down. I mean, that was my least favorite of the E3 sections that I
Yeah.
saw. I mean, I really didn't like that. I mean, it did feel like a generic action shooter.
I think that was definitely the most poorly paced one. And
Which one stood out?
It wasn't so bad when
I like
went back
Jake's
and
the
played it.
most, I think.
And we could play as the
Fight a
secondary
boss.
characters now.
Yes.
Did that make a
play as
difference,
Sherry
or do
Birkin.
they,
It does.
they all play the same? Or
It does. I mean,
Sherry Birkin
it's
is super cute.
It's not unlike what
Makes
you've
a
seen in
all grown
RE5
up.
with Sheva.
Not all grown up.
There are some parts, especially in Chris's campaign, where you'll take slightly separate paths and you'll have to meet up at a certain part. And for one part, like Pierce, I think you're playing as Pierce, right? There's one part where Chris would be rappelling down some kind of, I don't know. He was basically doing like a monkey bar thing.
Oh,
And,
yeah, like the jungle gym thing.
Exactly,
Okay.
and Pierce had to
I saw that part.
do some suppressive fire from afar. So it would mix up the gameplay a little bit like that, but for the most part, it was.
how is the AI? Because Sheva wasn't it's kind of
Well,
dull.
the good news is
And then
that if you do
full
play
Sheva.
with an AI person this time, they won't use up all your herbs automatically like Sheva does. But I don't know. There are also a lot of times where I felt like they were kind of a non-factor in the fights. Playing through Jake's campaign where you're trying to take down that huge monster.
But do you think that
tyrant
maybe
thing.
is tied into the
Didn't
easy
help.
difficulty?
I hope so.
I don't know. Yeah, with 2 people, the boss is kind of a joke. You can
Yeah.
pretty much just play with him and kill him at your mercy. There's some cool. I like that you can switch fire modes for the guns. Like
That's pretty
there's,
cool.
Here's my big question, though. I mean, I'd seen all the scenarios, but having you guys played them, do they actually feel different? I know the settings are different, but I mean, it's still the same controls?
It's actually
right?
a little strange in that I think in Leon's when you start, you can't do all your abilities. You can't run. You can't like dive on the floor. They're like,
can't shoot,
they're
right?
like, this is the walking around part.
Yeah.
Walk around and soak up the atmosphere. And I'm not really a fan. It's like when you're limiting my control to put me into it, that actually takes me out of it instead.
I want to say that maybe that's kind of like their tutorial phase.
Yeah, I'm sure that's early in the game. They have the classic, someone turns into a zombie. It's like, a zombie.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, Leon's not that surprised. He's
Well, this
seen
has
it
become
before.
such a polarizing title. I mean, there are people who are the hardcore fans of the first 2 Resident Evil games, and then a lot of people like the reboot and this more action vibe. When I saw it at E3, it seemed that they were, some would say pander to both camps, or trying to reach out to both camps, where they've got these 2 extreme versions of the game, and then this third section which is kind of a middling mash of it. I'm still not impressed with Resident Evil, in its current form. I just wish they'd go back to what the survival horror. I mean, there's not that much horror. I mean, even the level where you're in the university and the president's just gone zombie, and you have to find the lecturer's daughter and everything. It felt heavy-handed with the pacing. It was just like they were going. There was no innovation in how they controlled the atmosphere or anything. It was just generic tricks time after time.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a reality shock when I finally got to play it. The first time I had seen Resident Evil 6 at Captivate, it was mostly just a demo on stage. But after playing it, I definitely see where the differences were, from now and then. I was really disappointed with Leon's campaign because I thought that maybe they were going to harken back to the mansions of yore, where you could, freely roam around and check things out and, pick up weird rooster keys and puzzle pieces.
You're actually following around another character
yeah,
in this game, which is just like,
it's super linear.
yeah, they're like, okay,
Yeah,
we're going to
you
go
said
through
it-
this door now.
It's
and
more
we're gonna
linear
go
than
here.
5, you felt, right? I mean, it's
They
hard
don't
to
put
say
a,
in
they
the
don't put
demo,
a
but
follow
5 was
icon
pretty-
on the guy, but
5 was pretty much
Yeah, I mean,
point A to point B repeatedly.
People will
Except
complain
for maybe in
about
that pond area. Lake
yeah,
area.
like people will complain about 5, but at least the starting village and the water
The
tribe
part of the
place.
canoes and the crocodiles.
Yeah, I
and
mean
stuff. Yeah.
that kind of reminded you a bit of the open areas in 4.
Mm-hmm.
But here, I mean, the mansion or the college, whatever, was really kind of set on a linear track.
Do you think
like
maybe
you
it
said,
was-
that is kind of totally like tutorially, okay, it was
Yeah.
Do
slowly
you think
easing
it maybe
into the
was
game.
maybe like locked down a
You
little
can't
bit for
judge
the
demos
demo?
too much.
I hope so.
I don't. I think that's a scripted
It-
sequence, and you go through it. And
It
that's
is.
part
It
of,
is a little
learning
funny
the
though,
game.
because a lot of the big complaints from 5, right, were that the AI and the cooperative play worked in tandem to make it not really even less of a scary game, and you always had to have this partner. It got rid of all the crazy deaths, right? Because there's no death animations, because you could always revive your partner, which was
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
lame.
sometimes.
And now most of the time.
Yeah.
And then and now it's kind of like. They took that complaint, and now it's like there's even more characters to play, and the focus is spread even more thin.
Yeah.
I know they've had that kind of since Resident Evil 2 had the 2 different playthroughs, and Resident Evil 1 you could even change the different characters, but it was still
The different scenarios.
kind of similar in the same kind of setting, kind of gave you like a different take. But this is, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm just curious if it's spreading itself too thin by trying to do this.
I hope so, and they're trying to come out a month earlier than expected too, which makes it a little bit more worrisome.
I gotta say, one of the things I saw at E3, and we talked about this, the demo itself was janky. I mean, there was some serious glitches going on, there was a lot of clipping, there was tearing. I mean, just from a technical perspective, it didn't really stand out as a really polished E3 demo. And I'm wondering if they're up against it now, because they've released this. What's the point in releasing this early with regards to, just selling a couple of extra copies of Dragon's Dogma? When they've got a franchise that has been, no bones about it, since Resident Evil 4, it's been on the ropes. I mean, every iteration of Resident Evil that's come out, and I don't think I'm being too controversial in saying that, Operation Raccoon City and, the numerous other, bits and bobs that have come out, none of them have impressed. They've only diluted the franchise even
There are a
more.
lot of people that would argue that 5 is maybe a better game than 4. I'm not one of those people at all, but that's an opinion that exists, and there are things
Really?
to say about that.
Yeah,
Who are
I
these
don't
people?
know how many people
don't know.
would actually argue that. I'd be interested. I mean, I'm sure.
I mean,
our-
5 was
Crazy
still a
people.
lot
Crazy
of fun,
people like Tom
but it felt like, I don't know, it was just missing something. 4 was so great. I mean, that's the problem, right? It's trying to compete against itself.
Well, they're not doing anything drastic with it. They're
Yeah.
like, let's make a game. Let's add, adding characters, adding features. That's how you build on a regular base. But the base isn't changing, and
Well, I'd be interested to
so
see
hold
what
on.
they do come sort of like September, if they're going to release a new demo that's a lot more polished to everybody all in one go. And I think, Justin, you hit the nail on the head. It's probably better off just to buy Dragon's Dogma for the game that it is and forget about.
it's still cool.
downloading
It's
this
cool to
demo.
see things. I won't say that I won't have fun. I didn't have fun with Resident Evil 6 demo. I still had fun with it. There's
Co-op's
fun stuff
always
to do.
fun.
And yeah, co-op's fun. You can spam the. Maybe it's not the intended kind of fun, but you can spam the voice commands back and forth. Glad you're
job.
here. Glad you're here.
Thanks.
Get over here. Yeah, you can kind of joke around, and shooting zombies. It's okay.
No, Resident Evil's good. We just want it to be great.
Okay, next up we're going to talk about an XBLA game that came out this week, and it's based on a PC game that came out a while ago. Ryan, you've been playing Spelunky, which is a delightfully named title.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken its inspiration from Spelunker, which was actually the first Nintendo game I ever played. I played it before I even played Mario. And if anyone knows this game, it's infamous for being really hard, and you can't fall more than like 4 pixels without dying.
Break your legs.
There's some good art out there, so you should Google that. But it's taken Spelunker, which I have a personal history with, and roguelike games, which for the people that don't know, it's the little games where you're the little @ symbol. Dwarf Fortress is not exactly a roguelike, but it takes some inspiration. And randomized worlds, randomized settings. You know, you try to win, but you also try to go for a big score. And roguelikes traditionally have been turn-based RPGs. You know, you level up, you get stats. You know, and Spelunky is taking that and adding platforming mechanics. You know, you whip and you run, and there's still items and stuff like that. And it's also taking, well, there weren't ropes in Spelunker, but it's taking the idea of bombs where you can destroy the environment to get places and stuff like that, and these ropes to kind of escape. And it's tremendous. And you know, you can watch the review, but what it really made me think of is it made me so sad for Diablo 3. Because Diablo 3, or if you go back to Diablo 1 was inspired by roguelike games. It's inspired by NetHack and Rogue and all of those. You can actually read articles for the Blizzard guys that worked on those. Originally, Diablo was going to be a turn-based game, and then when they decided to make it real-time, and that kind of shifted the focus a bit. But now I would say like the Diablo series and, God, what's that game?
Torchlight.
I was going to say Torchwood. Torchlight, these have become like what I would call like a subclass. And there's still randomization and everything, but they're loot games, really. You know, same thing kind of even with like a game like Borderlands. They've gone more on the loot side than the roguelike side. And the roguelike side is great because you have these fantastic algorithms where the randomization, like who cares about the randomized dungeons in Diablo 3? Do you give like two flying fucks? It doesn't really matter. Yeah, exactly. Here, the randomization, the formations, they actually affect how you play. It affects how you care about items. It makes things that are similar. Things can look familiar, but they're still going to play out differently each time. And it's this kind of gives it. I mean, you know, randomization it can be a double-edged sword. A lot of times it can be really shitty. I know. God, did Morrowind have randomized dungeons? I don't know. There was some game, not that recently, but you know, they can be crap. Like, or even Diablo, like I said.
Yeah. That's fact check.
Spelunky is, its algorithms are great. It has little reoccurring sections that you'll be able to call out. Maybe you'll see like a beehive or something like that. But it's never put into a place where I played hundreds of games and I was never got to a point where I've actually got stuck. You can get yourself stuck if you bomb yourself down into a pit and run out of ropes or something like that, but it generates a world that's interesting enough in the little interactions. Like I was playing for a while before I could even realize I could pick up the little rats that were running around and use them to chuck at traps to set them off. And that's just like a small idea of the interactions. The items, which are much more like rare, and some of them you can accumulate, some of them you have to like actively equip, and they can totally change the play style as well. And it's one of those games where you get good at it to the point where you can beat it. And then it's about getting that high score, which is actually like hunting out the treasures. And you know, high scores, God, I think other than maybe like some shooter, like games that maybe Tony Hawk kind of brought back high scores for a little while for people, but people don't really care about high scores. But this is a game where I think leaderboards, other than maybe like shooters, you know, this is a game where I think leaderboards are, you know, and that's a good factor of it being on Xbox Live Arcade. It makes it actually more important for something that you can get good at. Like a cool example would be like you can go out of your way to get these special items, and if you can somehow get all these items, and later on in the game you can actually access a bonus level where like everything's made out of diamonds, but you have to put so much time. And the game is permadeath, which is another kind of factor of roguelike games. So you know, if you fuck up, you're dead. It's game over. So I don't know. It's interesting, and there's been a lot of positive response. I think.
I think it's
played
not,
some of it.
It's maybe not quite so. It sounds when you're describing all these in-depth elements of design that it's a difficult game to play, and I think while it is hard, it's not really super complex. I mean, you run around, you climb on things, you whip things, you use items, and there are complexities. But just pick it up and run around. It's totally it's a little platformer, and.
It's funny because like even though I had played the PC version, when I first played the first couple of levels, I was like, there was like this kind of like mental block where it's like, oh, I'm used to this, and it wasn't until you die and you start seeing some of the variations that go in that you actually kind of see that there's way more to it than what's at the surface. It's a great game. I think the demo version may not really show off a lot of what makes it great, because I think it's the tutorial.
Does the demo have dudes, damsels, and dogs in it?
No, I think there's only damsels in that.
Only damsels.
The dog's really cute, but try the PC version. It's free, but the Xbox version, not such a big fan on the graphics. Music's pretty good, but it's got some cool features. Just don't mess around with the multiplayer.
Multiplayer's a bitch.
Pretty random. Like
it's
you die.
Throwaway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've tried prayer, I've tried my 44, but Satan's wearing Kevlar.
So next up, we're going to talk about an MMO that's been I would say kind of like quietly generating some buzz. I mean, it's one of those ones we've talked about
It's
a
a
little
secret
before.
buzz.
It is a secret.
With bees.
It is. It is the Secret World, and that came out this week. Now, Ryan, you've clocked up over 50 hours on it. I
Yeah.
myself, I mean, I'm just sort of like dipping my toe in. I got my code the other day, and I'm sort of like slowly just enjoying the story because, you know, I've said this before, I am so sick of swords and sorcery MMOs.
Yeah,
and
it
that
definitely
they are
has that going for it.
They're absolutely everywhere. Every single game, MMO has to be a friggin' swords and sorcery game.
Well,
and
you
this
got
one,
Star Wars, but then that's kind of a licensed thing.
yeah, I mean, that's
It's
what
still sword and sorcery.
there's lightsabers and sorcery.
Lightsabers.
magic,
magic.
it's the force.
But this,
yeah.
I mean,
It's
ironically
magic
enough,
itself.
Which
this game does have, you know, powers and some sort of sorcery feel to it, but it's obviously set in a more modern environment that people can relate to. But anyway, you've been playing it a truckload more than I have.
Yeah, you know, I've never played. I didn't play Funcom's other MMOs. I never played Anarchy Online or Conan. But they've been around the block in the MMO neighborhood. I think it's a really interesting game in the fact that it does break the mold in some ways. It has a big adventure game aspect to it. You know, Funcom used to make the Secret World, not Secret World, sorry, The Longest Journey back in the day, which is a pretty critically acclaimed adventure game. And there's these, some of the quests are, you know, they have you doing like ARG stuff. You have to break out web browsers and stuff, or just have to, or not even web browsers, sometimes just have to solve puzzles in game. And it's just kind of the exact opposite of how I see people just, you know, they get a quest in WoW and it's like go straight to, what is it, Wowhead or Thoughtbot, or I haven't played WoW in a long time, you know, and just you tunnel through. And I know Blizzard, as trying to always appease the people, is, you know, they put in all the quest markers and things, so it's really easy to beeline stuff. The Secret World asks you to actually care a little bit, and I know the Old Republic did the same thing with the story, and maybe the story's not as involved where each of the character classes has one, but there's the 3 factions, and they all have a little intro, and then in the story, all the main quests have like big quest givers give you little monologues. Actually, sometimes they're quite long monologues, and then there's the actual story quest, which actually has like, you know, full-on cutscenes and whatnot. And you know, if you're the kind of person that likes that, you know, when you played WoW, I'm going to use WoW as the baseline here. You just clicked accept. You looked at the reward loot and clicked accept. I don't think it's going to be the game for you. This is a game that does ask you to kind of go into it, and the story's, I mean, you played a little of it. It's a little cheesy, but it's still kind of fun. It feels kind of like fan fiction. Like I ran into a guy at a skate park, and he's like, "Yeah, there's zombies around. I don't know why they haven't asked me to join up. I mean, I'm really good at playing Left 4 Dead." And I'm like, "Ha ha ha, you devil, you." There's a lot of jokes like that. And it's not really the most. It's a lot more pastiche. You know, it's a lot of like Lovecraft Lane and Clive Barkerville and shit like that. It's not. I'm exaggerating on that one, but it's.
Clive Barkerville.
You know, they have an Arkham University. It's a lot of you know, cherry picking the big name stuff. Combat kind of does. I know we reviewed Terra recently. Patrick played that. It does that kind of motion-y combat stuff, but not as well. Like the enemies have telltale signs. They'll have these little grids. I'm sure you've probably already seen that. And it asks you to actively dodge and reposition yourself. So they try to say it's more action-y combat, but it's not. And then they have there's so many aspects. It's an MMO, but then there's like the non-leveling thing, but you're still kind of leveling as you select your moves.
Is it
and
still
stuff
really
like
a
that.
combat-focused game? I mean, a lot of MMOs are, you know, a huge % combat. Is it
Well,
still a little less?
there's quests that, like I said, there's the puzzle quests. There's a lot of quests where you actually have to die and be in ghost form to do. Not a lot, but a handful. That's kind of interesting. And then there's like kind of stealth quests that ask you to kind of sneak around and do things. And there's solo instances, which kind of seem kind of anti-MMO in a way. It's like even if you're in a group, you'll each go into your own solo instance, and you can still chat and try to help people out that way. But the quests for the most part are good. I haven't got to jump on the Guild Wars beta, but I've had so few quests. I know some of the opening quests are like this, but so few quests where it's like kill 5 zombies. It's always like doing something, interacting with stuff. Even the ones that aren't straight up ARGs, like you have to like look through a telescope or like impale bodies on spikes as bait and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty fun to work your way through.
No, what I will
It
say
is a little obtuse with some of the crafting and some of the combat stuff and the systems, and nothing's flashy. Like I've chosen shotguns and elemental magic, and I have one thing called Thor's hammer, and that's about as flashy as it gets, and like a hammer drops down, but it never has that kind of like, oh, I got this new ability or anything like that.
It does. I mean, one of the things I've heard from several people is actually the first 2 to 3 hours of the game are a little dry and a little formulaic to get through. But once you get through those and you really start to pay attention to the story, then it really does start to suck you in. I mean, I've had people say, you know, they've played as much as you have, and it's one of those games where it's like I started off not really wanting to complete anything in this, but after the 2-3 hour mark,
there's a tipping point.
in.
Yeah, with the main story, like it has 18 tiers for the first main story quest. And like tier 2 is like help the people in town, and that's kind of this like, what the hell does that mean? But at a certain point you pick up that thread and you start following it, and then you kind of see the cutscenes and you see that the games actually has like this bigger reach. And again, you know, again to compare it to WoW and some other MMOs that I played, the world's kind of interesting. There's a couple parts where it's like it's just a forest, but for the most part, like you've messed around, it's very specific little areas. You know, yeah, you'll be at the beaches a bit, but like, you know, there was like a wizard school, and not quite Harry Potter, but you know, a wizard school, a haunted amusement park. I actually went on a roller coaster and had to fight the Octotron.
Not the Octomom.
No, God, you heard about her, right?
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear.
Off
She did a
topic.
porno.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
We
not
like
talk
to
about this further.
here on Invisible Walls.
But you know, I think this is going to be a game that's going to appeal to people, a certain type of person. I don't think there's no chance it's going to break
Nerds?
that threshold.
Just kidding.
You know, it's not going to be a WoW killer. Do people even say WoW killer anymore? But I think it's going to be, you know, I always wanted an MMO to have more of an adventure aspect, and it does that. It still doesn't do the persistent thing, and nothing's ever going to be persistent except for, you know, Minecraft servers and like the original Ultima Online. But it does kind of scratch that itch that I've dabbled in some MMOs in the past, and I'm definitely going to check out Guild Wars like I think everyone is. But it's interesting. I don't think, you know, it doesn't knock it. Can I use a sports analogy with Shane not here? It's not going to knock it out of the park, but it's good.
I would say
it's good.
It's very workmanlike in what it's.
I don't know what do you mean by that.
Well, you know, I mean, when I first, you know, the graphics and everything. The first time I looked at it, I honestly was reminded about the Matrix Online. The first time I sort of like, you know, was dropped in, and it's not going to win huge awards for graphics. It's not going to win huge awards for
the DirectX 11 with full tessellation has some nice looking stuff.
Well, I mean,
but
perhaps,
yeah, you're right. It won't win awards.
Again, with early, you know, being perhaps early in the game, I haven't really got further.
And I should actually probably preface this that considering we can't get it to run right now on our work computers, we're probably going to have to show the beta footage, which looks kind of ass, and we'll put a disclaimer on it. Right, Anton?
That's right.
But I got to give props to Funcom for actually trying something different. I mean, they did that with Anarchy Online. Unfortunately, that game sort of like started off well, but then kind of fizzled.
Well, I heard the same thing with Conan. Like,
and Conan did the same thing
people said
as
the
well.
levels 1 through 20 content was great, and then it was shitty. I will say this game only has 3 main zones right now, and it has subzones within it. I mean, I'm still in the first zone, and I'm 50 hours in, so there's a lot of content, and there's a lot of, like I said, it's not like, wow, yeah, each area has its own tile sets, but it's pretty much, this is the desert. You're in the desert everywhere. You're in the barrens or everywhere. So it is going to be interesting to see if it's enough content. And I've only dabbled with the PvP. I wasn't that big of a fan, but it's got. I mean, it is the full package.
Did you
for the
gank
most part?
some dudes?
I did, but I also got ganked a lot.
They suffer as his black disease infects the land they live off and the water they drink.
All right, that's our show for this week. Before we disappear, Ryan has some housekeeping duties, and no, he's not going to do my laundry, but you have some.
Oh, that's funny.
You have some things to
Like a
share.
joke. We are going to EVO this year, which does that stand for something? It's the fighting game thing in Las Vegas. So we got Mike Damiani and Patrick Morales heading out there. They're our fighting fans. Justin, you're not going. That's weird. Anyway, we have a big side mission article page that we'll be constantly updating with all the latest news, and we got a lot of things lined up. So check the site out for all things fighting games this week. A lot of big announcements and whatnot. And then next week, remember Comic-Con. We're going to have a lot of Comic-Con coverage as well. So all your comic book related news for video games, check in at GameTrailers.
And there's a Comic-Con All Access on Spike on Friday, a week tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they're doing 4 hours live,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be streamed as well. So, you know, check that stuff out. Our man Jeff Keighley will be there. Geoff Keighley.
I think a lot of people are going to be there. I'm looking forward to my first ever Comic-Con trip. I'm actually going down on the Saturday.
Yeah, if you see Marcus, make sure you ask him for an autograph and bug him. Don't let him go to the Doctor Who panel.
I'm not actually going to Doctor Who panel, but I am going to the Doctor Who meet and greet afterwards. All right, so that's our show. Shane will be back next week, so it'll be much better run next week. We'll probably talk about Comic-Con next week. Anything
Make
else?
some shit up.
We'll make some shit up, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna go off and smoke a joint, drink some beer, and make shit up for next week.
None of that's true.
Yeah. What? We're not gonna smoke.
Well-
We're not gonna drink, but we're gonna make shit up.
I'll give you that.
Okay. That's our show for this week. See you next week.